Welcome to the land of the weird, the strange, and the most unexplained stories you'll ever hear. And best of all, they're all true. This is Headphone Theater. The night sky has always been considered as the most solemn and sacred part of the day. There are things in the night sky that can make us breathless. Falling stars, full moons on warm, clear summer nights. The first sight of a planet through the lens of a telescope. And every time we look up into the vast emptiness of space, there is always that quiet, nagging thought in the back of our minds. I wonder if there could be life out there. Could there really be somebody out there right now, looking into the same star system that I'm looking at, wondering the same questions that I'm thinking about right now? Is it even possible? Really? You know, Carl Sagan, the famous American astrophysicist, once said, "Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not alone in the universe. But both are equally terrifying." And when something from out there came crashing into the waters of a small Canadian fishing village, the night sky was never the same again. And out there became a lot closer than anyone ever expected. This is the story of the Shag Harbour U.F.O. Our story begins on the weather-worn coasts of Nova Scotia, Canada. Nestled in the south shore sits a small fishing village, the village of Shag Harbour. It's a fishing village where fishing boats pass in the morning light, and all the fishermen wave to each other, and everyone knows everyone else. And every event that has ever happened in the town was talked about and recorded in every kitchen, like the pages of a diary kept by the town. And the sun beats down on the houses that dot the shoreline and overlook the haunting, yet beautiful Atlantic Ocean. This is the town of Shag Harbour. And it was here that on the night of October 4th, 1967, that an event took place. But no ordinary event. This event would change the town forever. Now, throughout that evening of October 4th, 1967, there were reports of strange lights in the skies all over the province of Nova Scotia, and people were calling in to report these lights to the local radio stations in the capital city of Halifax, hundreds of miles up the coast. And these calls came from every walk of life. Doctors, truck drivers, lawyers. Even pilots off the coast reported seeing these strange lights in their flight path, and they actually had to divert the plane so that they wouldn't hit the lights. Now, after this happened in Halifax, later on that night, near midnight, further down the long dark edge of the province, near the southern end, directly across from the state of Maine, there is a winding road that navigates the rocky landscapes that jutty in and out of the harbors and bays along the coast. The road was empty and dark that night, except for the headlights of one lone car. Inside that car were 4 young people. At the wheel was a young man named Laurie Wickens. He has his girlfriend by his side and 2 friends in the back seat, and they are driving home from a dance and enjoying the beautiful night air. The sky was clear and full of stars. There isn't a moon out at all, and the stars flicker and dance on the horizon line, so much that you can actually feel hypnotic and think you're driving at the very edge of eternity itself, because you can't tell where the ocean ends and the universe begins. All of a sudden, off to his right, Laurie notices a strange object over the ocean. He's thinking it's a plane in trouble because it has 4 lights with an orange hue in a line. The first light would come on, then the second light, then the third light, and when the last light came on, they would all go dark and the sequence would start over again. To their surprise, it starts swaying left and right, and all of a sudden it tips sharply to the left and angles itself downward, as though it's going to crash. By this time, Laurie and his friends are driving as quick as they can to keep up with this object. All of a sudden, it dips towards the town of Shag Harbour, just over the hill ahead of them. It sails behind the hill in front of Laurie, and they try to get to the top of the hill to see it impact the water. By the time they reach the hill, though, overlooking Shag Harbour, this object had already slammed into the harbour with a loud explosion. When Laurie and his friends arrived at the wharfs in Shag Harbour, people from nearby homes who heard the explosion from the impact are already standing on the docks, and everyone is looking out into the blackness of the Atlantic Ocean. And about 800 feet from the shore, they are looking at this pale yellowish glow about 8 feet above the water. And you can tell it's being illuminated from something beneath the surface, almost as if it was a spotlight underwater. Still thinking it's a plane crash, Laurie and his friends leave the scene and drive to a payphone about a half a mile away in Lower Woods Harbour to call the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. When the Mounties arrived, they too saw the pale yellowish light illuminating off the surface of the water just off the coast. They called in fishermen to help clean up what looked like a plane crash in the harbour. While fishermen were en route to the scene with their boats, the object all of a sudden begins to move with the tide and appears to be moving under its own power. The light faded out by the time the fishermen arrived on the scene a few minutes later. No wreckage could be seen beneath the strong, bright floodlights of the fishing boats. Nothing. The light was gone, and all that was left was this 8 to 10 foot wide, thick, yellowish, brownish foam that had a goldish sparkle to it. The trail of foam stretched along the surface of the water for a half a mile, and the smell of burnt sulfur filled the air. The RCMP checked with every military and civilian airport from Labrador, Newfoundland to Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, but no reports of missing or in distress planes were reported. Still thinking it was a plane crash, the RCMP contacted divers from the Canadian Navy and the Canadian Coast Guard. They dived on the site for 2.5 days, searching the depths for any type of wreckage, or perhaps bodies. But the official record claimed that not a shred of evidence was ever found to suggest that anything had crashed into the waters off Shag Harbour, Nova Scotia. So what was it? It obviously wasn't a plane, but the police seen the light from it. The people seen the actual object crash into the water. Could it have been something from somewhere else in the universe? Well, the Canadian Defense Department did issue a memo that read, quote, "A preliminary investigation has been carried out by the Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax, and it has been determined that this UFO sighting wasn't caused by a flare, float, aircraft, or any known object," unquote. You see, the Shag Harbour UFO incident is one of the most authenticated UFO sightings in the world, due to so many officials having witnessed it, as well as so many government documents written up about it describing different aspects of it. Now, the really strange part about the documents, to which there are many, is one document in particular, describing the event. And at the top of the page, off to the side, handwritten in pen by somebody, in strong letters, the letters UFO are underlined 3 times. Now, the term UFO just means unidentified flying object, but the unique thing about this situation is it appeared over the ocean to witnesses who saw 4 orange-colored lights in a line. It slammed into the harbor water hard enough to create an explosive sound. It illuminated the water and the air in front of everyone from 800 feet away. It disappeared into the blackness somehow, leaving a gold-sparkled thick yellow and brownish foam, 8 to 10 feet wide and a half a mile long on the surface of the water. And there has never been one piece of wreckage ever found. Whatever it was that crashed into Shag Harbour near midnight on October 4th, 1967, and wherever it came from, remains completely unknown to this day. Tune in next week for another strange but true story here inside Headphone Theatre. If you have a story to tell, email it to headphonetheatre@outlook.com. I'm Alex McDonald. Take care.